So this guy, this guy's obviously a real humanitarian,
Maybe you want to go into the Mujahideen a little bit.
I don't want to go too far into it, but yeah, I should mention, the Mujahideen were the jihadi fighters that were...
Put your hand down.
The Mujahideen were the jihadi fighters who were organized by the U.S. government to fight the Soviet occupation in Afghanistan. And after they succeeded in that, a few years later, they mutated into Al-Qaeda and the Taliban and nasty, nasty characters like those who came back and bit us about 20 years later, of course.
So while we're talking about dealing with this terrorist organization, we're also putting people into power who were fundamentally significant in creating this group.
And another thing, as far as Brzezinski is concerned, is that he's unapologetic for it. There's a quote, where he just said, "Oh yeah, the Mujahideen, so what? What's more important, the destruction of the Soviet Empire or a few stirred-up Muslims?" So basically, Obama's going to put people in charge of his foreign policy. They're going to do the same crap all over again. And now you're looking at the people he's putting into his cabinet. These people are all basically the chief assistants to the guys that Bill Clinton put in his cabinet. These are the exact same people. As much as the liberals complained about 8 years ago when Bush was reinstalling Reagan's old cronies, well, now we've got a Democrat and he's reinstalling Clinton's old cronies.
That's why when people, there's a lot of comparing of Obama to Clinton, to Reagan, and to Kennedy, and all of it has for the vast majority that those comparisons have been made in support of him, and as like oh he is so much like these past presidents, isn't that great?
Right.
Look at how much he is comparable to these past wonderful presidents, and it seems to me that he is comparable to them. Is that a good thing?
Again, it's really a question of who you're asking, of course. You're talking about, the ruling class, you're talking about the manager's class, you're talking about the upper middle class who works their ass to the bone to try to become the manager class. Yeah, they do think those people are great. If you're privileged, these previous presidents were very good at maintaining the system and making sure the spoils went to the privileged.
But even most of the average working people consider those past presidents to be great, to be important, and to have significantly helped the country, and as a result helped them.
And that's obviously the popular indoctrination line for reasons that I don't think we need to go into. But that does go into the idea. That's that sort of patriotism myth is sort of what we're getting into here, where it's just, somehow because we share the same plot of dirt with the bankers at Citibank and with the generals at the Pentagon, that we somehow have something in common with them. And when they get ahead, we get ahead. It's sometimes true to a small extent. Sometimes, under some administrations, we do get some of the crumbs of the imperial spoils thrown our way. But the question is it really worth the cost? When we're the ones who have to do the fighting, when we're the ones who do all the productive work in the workplaces, is it enough? And I say no.
And I say it's sad that it's even framed within those parameters, because that's not even asking whether it's the cost of bloodshed of millions of people across the world that aren't in our little bubble, that aren't in our patriotic country. What about the people that suffer and die and work in sweatshops every day? That's the question you don't hear asked.
So, everybody knows that we have a very serious financial crisis. Could somebody please explain to me actually what that is? Because I have yet to really comprehend what the crisis is, regardless of what will Obama do about it to help us.
Well, I will offer the disclaimer at first that I don't have an economics degree. I still have my soul intact. But I will give you this much. The guys on Wall Street are a bunch of greedy scumbag sharks who like to imagine brilliant new ways of inventing wealth on paper. I mean, these guys are professional speculators. They're not actually doing anything productive or actually creating any wealth. They're inventing wealth the same way I might, print off a few rolls of Monopoly money and try to counterfeit it. The difference, of course, is these guys have power and they're playing in a game that's supposed to have credibility, and so their Monopoly money somehow actually exists. Somehow. And you have things like this subprime mortgage crisis from about a year, 2 years ago, which has sort of fallen off the headlines, which was basically a matter of banks making a bunch of money by offering mortgages to people who couldn't actually afford to own homes. And it was great because there were more mortgages and the banks were getting more payments. And then, when people, started defaulting on those houses, they shrugged at first. And of course the government said, well, it's not our business. We're not responsible to help people who are losing their home. They should have lived within their means. But of course, when these banks started collapsing because they realized that monopoly money didn't actually exist, to take one small piece of this crisis, then of course it was just, oh crap, the whole house of cards is falling down. And of course these guys actually have real power and real wealth, so we are going to come in and bail them out. We do have a nanny state in this country, a welfare state for the rich. Yeah. And that's for sure.
So what you're suggesting is that the crisis is that some very rich people aren't making quite as much money as they would like. And they want to be compensated for that.
Well, these guys basically just added a couple zeros to the end of their bank account with a magic marker, and now they want the government to make it reality.
So is that a crisis, or is that bullshittery?
Depends on who you ask, I suppose.
And that's the big thing to me, is when you're looking to get an unbiased examination of this in the media, you go to people who are experts in the financial area, the people that are making money out of this pool. So is it good that we are throwing money into this pool? Oh, of course it's great. It's great for the people you're talking to, the financial experts.
My original question was really, how am I being affected by the source of this supposed crisis? Not the solutions that have been offered, which obviously cost everybody a lot of money to fix, supposedly. But I mean, how is the actual crisis itself ruining everybody everywhere? The way it's been presented.
Well, obviously it sort of creates the pretense to have a recession. And a recession is an excuse for the people who own everything in this country to throw all the workers out on the street. Say, oh, we're not going to make anything for a while. And obviously that's the point where working people really begin to care, because they stand to lose their jobs.
Isn't this just kind of the nature of capitalism in general, is that there are these ups and downs, and it's all just part of the game, basically?
It's a game.
Yeah.
It's a psychotic fantasy
for
a bunch of rich, fat, white bankers in Wall Street. And when they freak themselves out at the loss of some monopoly money, they just dismantle the economy.